I remember the day I turned 50. Not because it was some big celebration, but because my body started telling me things I didn't want to hear. Joints ached in the morning. Eyes got tired sooner. And there was this feeling in my chest, sometimes, like I couldn't get a full breath. I brushed it off at first. Stress, bad diet, maybe just age creeping in. But it stayed. I kept on with my job, day in and day out, ignoring the warnings. I've always been that way. Push through, don't complain. That's how my father raised me. He used to say, no one cares how you feel. They just want you to do the job. So I did. We live in a simple subdivision outside Cleveland. Nothing fancy. Houses that look alike, grass that never stays green enough, driveways where we park our half-washed cars. People nod at each other, wave a little if we pass by. I'm not the neighborly type, but I keep a civil face. I'll say hi if I see you rolling your trash bin out. I'll lend a hand if your dog gets out and starts roaming. Beyond that, I mind my own. My wife and I, we've been married a long time. We met in our 20s. She was slim, had this quiet smile that I thought was sweet. We weren't a firecracker couple. We just got along, did the day-to-day stuff. Over time, things change. You learn that love can go stale, or maybe you just get used to it. We never argued much. That might sound good, but it can also mean there's a whole lot unsaid. I worked in contracting most of my life. Drywall, painting, whatever put food on the table. She had her office job, punching numbers into spreadsheets. We had a routine. Weekdays, we were both gone all day. Evenings, we'd watch TV or clean up around the house. Sundays, I'd mow the lawn if it wasn't raining. She'd wash the sheets. The biggest excitement might be ordering takeout. I'm not a talker. Sometimes that's a problem. She'd try to get me to open up. I'd just shrug or say, I'm fine. After a while, she stopped asking. A quiet house can feel comfortable. It can also feel lonely. I used to sit at the kitchen table sometimes, stare at the walls, and think, is this all there is? I never told anyone that. It felt too heavy and too real, and maybe too late to do anything about it. She started staying late at work, or maybe she was just out. I didn't ask questions. It felt like we were roommates sharing a space rather than two people in love. But that's the life you settle into sometimes. After enough years, you just accept it. The small touches fade away, the little gestures that once felt special. There was a time she'd rest her hand on my shoulder when I poured my coffee, or poke her head in while I was tinkering with the car. Those tiny things that say, I see you, I like you. They stopped. So that's me. Quiet, 50-something, living in a Cleveland suburb. I get up every morning at 6, drink coffee black, watch the news, and try not to let it get under my skin. Then I drive to work, bust my back carrying boxes of tile or mixing paint until 5 or 6 in the evening. My wife might be home, or might not be. I never knew for sure. Sometimes she'd leave a note, heat up leftovers. Other times there'd be nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the ticking of the clock. That distance between us. I can't say when it started. Maybe years ago. Maybe it was there all along, just under the surface. Some nights she'd come home, and I'd hear the shower running for an hour. The hot water would run out, and she'd still be in there. I wondered what she was washing away. I wasn't sure what to do about it. Confrontation isn't my style. I grew up watching my dad lose his temper over every little thing. If the lawnmower wouldn't start, he'd kick it. If the toast burned, he'd throw the plate. Me, I just keep quiet. I let things build inside until they either explode or shrink. Most times they shrink. With her, I guess I just let them shrink. Maybe that was my mistake. Last year was tough on us both. Work was scarce. Money got tight. We tried to pretend everything was normal, but there was that tension in the air, like something was about to snap. We stopped talking about the future. We rarely talked about the day we had. Sometimes she'd sigh in the mornings, Like getting up was a chore she didn't want to face. I can't remember the last time we laughed together. I'd see a flicker in her eyes now and then, a sadness or maybe regret, like she was checking out. I tried to ignore it, told myself we were just going through a rough patch. All marriages do, right? But deep down, I think I knew better. I noticed she was taking calls at odd hours. I'd walk into the living room, and she'd hang up. She'd say it was work. I'm not the brightest, but I'm not stupid. I could sense something was off. I started sleeping in the spare room sometimes, claiming my back hurt. She never complained. Maybe she liked the space. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, hearing every creak in the house, imagining she was in the next room staring at her own ceiling. Two strangers under one roof. It weighed on me, but I didn't do anything about it. The day before it all began to unravel, I remember I was on the porch, drinking a beer. It was late, maybe 10 or so. The sky was clear, and the stars were out. I could smell someone's barbecue from a house or two over. She was inside, probably already asleep. I took a long swig and felt this old ache in my shoulder. The cicadas were loud, making that buzzing sound they do in the summer. For a second, I wanted to walk back inside, go into our bedroom, and ask her, "What's wrong? Where are we?" But I didn't. I just sat there until the beer was gone. That's me, sitting and waiting while life moves on without me. A month back, she started cooking fancy dishes. Garlic, butter, fresh herbs. I asked her what's the occasion, and she just shrugged. "No occasion," she said. Then she packed some of it up, put it in Tupperware, and take it out with her when she left. Said she was bringing lunch to a coworker. The house smelled good, but we rarely ate together. It was strange, but I tried not to dwell on it. We all do weird things sometimes, but these little signs, they add up. That's how I lived for a while. Quiet, tired, alone in a house I paid for. Nights blurred together. Days felt heavy. The best part of my day was when I was too busy at work to think about home. Because thinking about home made me uneasy. Like I was missing something obvious. A smell you can't place. A shadow you see out of the corner of your eye. You almost catch it, then it's gone. That was my life. I guess if I'm honest, I knew something was breaking between us. A crack that kept widening. She'd avoid my eyes. I'd avoid asking questions. We both participated in this silent game. Maybe neither of us wanted to face the truth. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you admit it, you have to decide what to do about it. And that's the scary part. Action. That's who I am. That's where we stood. A man in his 50s, worn out, married for too long, stuck in a house that felt smaller every day. But I'm not the type to go out looking for trouble. I keep to myself. I never saw myself as a man who'd have to question his wife's loyalty. Yet here I was, feeling the cold space on the bed, hearing the hush in the rooms, noticing the faint trace of perfume in the air when she thought I was asleep. Something was off. I just wasn't ready to admit it. So I said nothing. I brushed off the signs, kept living my routine, believing that maybe it would blow over, or maybe I didn't believe that at all. Maybe I just didn't know how to say, "Is everything okay?" Because I was afraid the answer would be, no. I think it was a Tuesday. Hard to remember now. I came home around 6, worn out and dusty from hauling stacks of drywall. My arms were shaking from the weight of them. I stepped inside, kicked off my boots, and noticed the smell of garlic. Strong. Like someone had just been cooking. But the stove was cold. The sink was empty. Not a pot or pan in sight. She wasn't around. I took a quick shower, rinsing the grit off me, and headed to the kitchen to see if there was any food left out. Nothing. The place looked untouched, aside from that lingering smell. Then the doorbell rang. It was our neighbor, Greg. Late 40s, balding, friendly enough. He stood there, hands in his pockets. Awkward. I asked him what was up, and he said, "Hey man, sorry to bother you." Just wanted to check if everything was okay last night. I frowned and asked what he meant. He looked confused. I saw lights on real late. Thought maybe you had people over. You know, maybe a party or something. I just stared at him. No, I said. We didn't have anyone over. He looked back at me, unsure. Oh, must have been someone else. I just heard noise. Laughter. Figured you had company. He tried to smile. Then he mumbled something about having a good evening and left. I closed the door, stood there. My wife had told me she was working late the night before. She got home past midnight, or so she said. But now Greg was telling me there were lights, voices, activity coming from the house. I tried to recall. I'd been out like a light by 11. Maybe I was just too tired to notice anything. Or maybe I was being lied to. My heart pounded. For some reason, that small conversation with Greg hit me like a sledgehammer. The house smelled like garlic and butter, but there was no trace of a meal. The neighbor heard laughter. I hadn't laughed in a long time. My wife said she wasn't here. Something wasn't adding up. That was the moment I felt the first real jolt of panic. All the small suspicions that had been floating around my mind suddenly had something to grab onto. I remember pulling open the fridge door, looking at the shelves. There was a half tray of lasagna, some leftover noodles, but it looked untouched since the weekend. I checked the trash, found nothing new except a few paper towels. No wine bottle, no dishes, no sign of a guest. But the smell was so strong, fresh, it made me dizzy. I waited for her. Midnight rolled around, and she still wasn't back. I sat on the couch, eyes on the TV, though I wasn't really watching. My phone was in my hand, and I kept glancing at it, wondering if I should call. But I didn't want to seem suspicious, so I just waited. When I finally heard her car pull up, it was almost 1. She came in, saw me on the couch, and paused. "Why are you still up?" she asked. I shrugged, stared at her. Couldn't sleep. "Long day." She nodded, dropped her purse on the counter. She smelled like perfume, not the cheap stuff. The expensive scent she only wore on special occasions. She looked tired, or maybe guilty. I couldn't read her face. I asked how work was. She said, "Busy." Then she headed to the bathroom to shower. I wanted to ask about last night. I wanted to confront her, bring up Greg, the smell, the lights. But the words wouldn't come. So I just sat there, the TV flickering. When she came out, she barely gave me a glance. Went to the bedroom, shut the door. I stayed on the couch. The next day, we hardly spoke. At work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to that conversation. The missing pieces, the tension in her eyes. Some men would jump to conclusions, blow up, demand answers. I'm not that man. I let it simmer, tried to bury it under the day's grind, but it kept bubbling up. I started noticing more things. A single wine glass drying on the counter. A stray receipt in her bag with 2 entrees listed. She'd say she forgot to mention a coworker joining her for dinner. Little excuses that might have worked if you weren't already suspicious. But once you sense a lie, it all smells rotten. One night, maybe a week later, she came in late again. This time, I could smell her breath. Wine. She swayed a little, took off her heels, muttered a greeting. Then she said, "I'm exhausted. Tonight." She didn't even look at me. I watched her walk down the hall like I was watching a stranger. We started having these short, meaningless conversations. "There's dinner in the fridge. I'm headed out. Be back late." We were polite, but there was no warmth. I didn't press. But inside, I felt something churning. Anger, fear, heartbreak. I'm not sure. Could have been all of them. Still, I kept quiet. It felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, not sure if I should jump or step back. I thought about that neighbor's question all the time. "Did you have guests last night?" I played it over in my head, imagining what he might have seen. Her with someone, laughing, sharing a meal, all while I slept or pretended not to notice. The thought made my stomach twist. She hadn't asked me for anything new. No talk of separation, no big fights, just a slow drift into secrecy. I told myself, maybe it's all innocent, but I didn't believe that. Not really. My gut knew better. When a woman cooks with garlic and butter late at night, laughs in the kitchen with someone else, and then pretends it never happened, it's not innocent. I wanted to check her phone, but I've never been that kind of man. I also felt like, if I had to do that, we were already done. Instead, I sat in that tension. I did my job, pretended to be normal. The days grew long. The nights felt longer. She was on her phone more, texting, sometimes smiling at something I couldn't see. Then one evening, she forgot her phone on the counter while she went to the bathroom. It buzzed, once, twice. My heart pounded. I picked it up, looked at the screen. A name I didn't recognize. A short message. Missing you. Next time at your place. My hand shook. I put the phone down quickly, walked away. She came back, picked up the phone, glanced at me. I must have looked pale. She didn't say a word. She slipped the phone into her pocket and walked past me to the bedroom. My heart felt like it was punching my ribs from the inside. That was it. There was no going back. My suspicions weren't just suspicions anymore. There was someone else. Maybe more than one. I felt sick, but I couldn't talk about it. Not yet. I needed more, I guess. Maybe I needed the truth to punch me again, so I couldn't ignore it. The next day, I took an early lunch. Drove around the block a few times, thinking about what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her. Another part wanted to catch her in the act. And then there was this tiny voice in my head saying, "Walk away. Don't waste your time." But I wasn't ready to walk away. Not then. I wanted answers, even if they'd break me. So I waited. I watched. My eyes opened wider than they had in years. It was just the beginning. The day I got the confirmation, it was a Saturday. She said she was going to a friend's bridal shower. Left the house in a simple dress, hair pulled back, casual enough. I was supposed to be out on a job site, but it got canceled last minute. I found myself home, alone, watching sports highlights on a muted TV, thinking too much. Around noon, I decided to do something I'd never done. Follow her. I felt like a creep. But I couldn't sit there blind anymore. So I got in my truck and drove toward the address I knew she might be heading. After a few minutes, I spotted her car at a red light. I kept 2 cars behind, my heart hammering. She drove past the street she should have turned on for her friend's place. A few more turns, and we ended up in a quiet residential neighborhood across town. Nice houses, big lawns, tall trees. She parked in a driveway. I stopped down the street, watched. She got out, walked to the door. A man opened it. They stood there, talking. Then he leaned in and kissed her. She smiled and stepped inside. Door closed. I sat there, engine running, mind blank. I felt a cold wave wash over me. Numb, like I was watching a movie starring someone who looked like my wife. That was it. The moment everything changed. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I remember thinking, okay, so this is real. It's happening. I didn't barge in, didn't scream, didn't do anything. I drove away, found a parking lot near a strip mall, and just sat there, staring at the asphalt. Cars passed. People came and went, living their normal lives. Mine felt like it had been pulled out from under me. 30 years of marriage, undone in a single kiss. The rest of the day was a blur. I went home eventually, sat in the garage with the door closed, engine off, just breathing, trying to figure out what next. Then I remembered something about a DNA test. A while back, we'd had a scare. She mentioned something about a test, though it wasn't for paternity, or so I thought at the time. Something about a genetic screening. Now I wondered if there was more to it. My mind raced with the idea that maybe it was for verifying a child that wasn't mine, or maybe it was something else. I wasn't sure, but I couldn't shake the suspicion. She'd been distant for a long time. Maybe she'd been living a double life. When she came home late that evening, she didn't mention any bridal shower. I asked how her day was, and she said it was fine. Then she went to the bedroom. I sat there, playing it over in my head. The man at the door, the kiss, the way she leaned into him. My chest felt tight. I wanted to confront her, but something stopped me. Fear, maybe. Or a strange sense of pride, like I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing how badly she'd hurt me. I started checking her social media, something I'd never really bothered with before. She was pretty private online, but I found a few clues. Locked accounts, hidden friend lists, stuff that made me suspicious. I started going deeper, searching for the man I'd seen. Didn't know his name, but I recognized his face from somewhere. A party years ago. A coworker's function. Couldn't place him. But I knew I'd seen him before. I remember feeling this cold fury settle over me. Something I hadn't felt in years. Not a fiery rage, but a quiet, steady anger that made my fingers shake as I clicked through page after page. She'd changed her passwords, or maybe just had different ones I never knew. I was locked out, stuck on the outside. That's when I did something I'm not proud of. I started looking up ways to track emails, trace phone numbers, dig into corners of the internet I'd never touched. I found forums, tutorials, methods to harass or spy. It was like stepping into a dark alley, one I never thought I'd walk down. But I was hurt, desperate for answers, for some kind of control. I learned quickly how to send anonymous messages, how to create fake profiles, troll accounts. I wasn't sure why I was doing it. At first, it was just to see if I could find out more, but then it shifted into something uglier. I found a twisted satisfaction in the idea of messing with her from the shadows, making her uncomfortable, making her question who was watching. It was a slow, toxic slip into revenge. I never confronted her face to face. Instead, I left subtle hints online that I knew her secrets. I posted comments on random posts she'd liked, mocking words she'd recognize but others wouldn't. I found the man too. Sent him strange messages from burner accounts. Watched them scramble, block me, then reappear somewhere else. It became a game. And the more I dug in, the more I fed on that bitterness. It gave me a twisted sense of power, something to cling to when everything else was spinning. She stayed distant in person. We barely spoke more than a few sentences a day, but I could see in her eyes that something was wrong. She looked startled sometimes, checking her phone with this worried frown. I knew my attacks were landing. I knew she felt cornered, confused. She didn't know it was me. That made it all the sweeter, and all the more disturbing. But it wasn't enough. I was still living in the same house, same tension, same lies. Every night I'd lie in bed, or on the couch, thinking about the kiss I saw, the way she lied without blinking. My anger wasn't softening. It was growing. She'd destroyed my trust, and I wasn't sure I could ever tell her I knew. Not yet. I wasn't ready to see the look on her face. A few days later, I stumbled on a piece of evidence that sealed it for me. A message that referenced a DNA result shared between her and someone else. I never got the full text, just a snippet. Something about the test confirmed it. And there's no way he'll figure it out. My blood ran cold. I didn't know what it meant exactly, but I knew it was bad. She was talking about me, obviously, hiding something big. Another betrayal. Another lie. I felt my world tilt. I wanted to smash something, break down the door to our bedroom, and demand answers. But that's not how I operate. Instead, I retreated further, poured myself into that online war, unleashed trolls on her social media, spread rumors through anonymous accounts, sent cryptic emails. It was vicious. Cowardly, maybe, but I was consumed by it. I wanted her to feel insecure, exposed. Wanted her to taste the betrayal she'd served me. She had no clue it was me. Whenever she was home, she'd act jumpy, check her phone, sigh, rub her temples. I'd ask, "Everything okay?" She'd just nod, say she was fine. She was lying. I was lying too, in my own way, pretending to be clueless. The house was thick with secrets, the walls practically humming with tension. One night, she left her laptop open by mistake. I checked her email. There it was, the DNA results, some attached file with a random ID number. I clicked it. Couldn't read much, some medical jargon, but it was enough to confirm she was hiding more than an affair, something about a child. My hands trembled as I scrolled. I realized I was reading something that proved I wasn't the father of. Well, let's just say it was about a boy. And I'd never known about any boy. The dates, the references, they pointed to a timeline that overlapped with us. My head spun. She must have gotten pregnant years ago, ended it or gave the child away or something. I don't know. Maybe she miscarried. It's still a blur. But that was the final nail. I closed the laptop, my mind reeling. I felt my chest tighten, that breathless sensation I'd been ignoring for months. My heart thundered. I was drowning in betrayal. Everything we had was a lie. A thick, toxic lie that had seeped into every corner of my life. She came home that night. Didn't realize what I'd found. I looked at her, she looked away. We were strangers sharing a box with a roof. I knew I couldn't continue like this, but I also knew I wasn't ready to confront her face to face. So I stayed quiet, stewing, planning my next move. Because there was going to be a next move. The next morning, I woke up with a decision in mind. I'd get definitive proof, not just a snippet of an email. I'd gather everything, build a case. For what? Divorce? Maybe. Or maybe just to have it in my back pocket, so I wouldn't be the fool in the end. I called in sick to work, spent the day digging, searching through old files, old emails, receipts, phone records. It was like I was investigating a crime. In a way, I was. The crime of betrayal. By midday, I had a folder of screenshots, pictures, saved messages, enough to bury her in guilt. I felt sick looking at it, but I couldn't stop. It was like a compulsion. I'd see a photo of her with that man, a conversation full of inside jokes and innuendos. My stomach lurched, but I kept going. Rage simmered just below the surface. Then I did something I'd never dreamed I'd do. I contacted an online group of trolls. People who get kicks out of terrorizing strangers on the internet. I paid them a small fee, gave them some details. Her online handles, the man's name, their workplaces. I told them to harass, to spread rumors, to humiliate in subtle ways, not to blow it up publicly, but to sting them personally. Messages, phone calls, the occasional comment that would make their friends or coworkers question their character. I wanted them to squirm. I wanted them to feel what betrayal felt like. They got to work fast. Within days, her phone was lighting up. Her email flooded with weird messages. She asked me if I was getting strange calls. I lied, said no. She looked worried. Good. I wanted her to worry. She started snapping at me, irritably complaining about spam and scammers. I played dumb. That gave me some satisfaction, watching her unravel bit by bit, not knowing the source. The DNA results, though, that was a separate monster. It kept gnawing at me. I didn't fully understand the scope, but I knew enough. She'd lied about a child, or about something that tied her to someone else, even further back than I realized. My trust was gone, burned to ash. She was in my house, sleeping in my bed, and I couldn't look at her the same. One evening, she came home, tear-streaked face, looking disoriented. She said her boss had called her in because of some anonymous complaints, weird rumors spreading around the office. I just nodded, asked if she was okay. She let out a shaky breath, said she didn't understand what was happening, that someone was out to get her. I shrugged and said, "That's rough." Inside, I felt cold triumph. I thought about confronting her, waving the evidence in her face. But I was in too deep with my hidden revenge. Part of me relished the secrecy. I wanted her to feel the sting without knowing who held the whip. I'd never felt so empowered and so disgusted with myself at the same time. A grown man in his 50s, playing internet spy games in the shadows. But I couldn't stop. My anger was bigger than my conscience. That night, I barely slept. I kept hearing her toss and turn in our bedroom. I was on the couch, arms folded, staring at the dark ceiling, feeling the rage coil tighter. Something had to give. We couldn't keep living like this forever. Either I'd break or she would. The next day, I discovered the ultimate piece of confirmation. A direct conversation between her and the man, stashed in a hidden folder on her laptop. My hands shook as I read it. They joked about how I'd never know. They planned their next meetup, talked about their nights here in our kitchen, cooking, drinking, laughing, while I was in the other room asleep. My stomach churned. The smell of garlic and butter from that night came rushing back. The memory of her being at work, while my neighbor asked if we had guests. They mentioned the DNA test, in vague terms, referencing an older event. It was clear she'd lied to me about a whole chapter of her life. The betrayal ran deeper than I'd imagined. They even discussed taking a short trip, maybe renting a cabin. He won't suspect a thing, one of them said. Reading that, I thought I might punch a hole in the wall. But I didn't. I just clenched my fists, shut off the laptop, and walked outside to get some air. I stood in the yard, looking at the patchy grass, breathing in the cool evening air. My head spun with questions. Do I confront her now? Do I blow up her whole world with what I know? Do I pack a bag and leave? A wave of exhaustion hit me. 30 years together, and this is how it ends. My throat felt tight. I realized I hadn't cried. Not once. Maybe I was too angry to cry. Or maybe I was past tears. She came home an hour later, found me standing on the porch. She asked if I was okay. I shrugged. She stood there, eyes darting around like she expected me to say something big. I didn't. I just said I needed some rest and went inside. She followed, uncertain. Later that night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Maybe the trolls had escalated their attacks. Maybe her lover was pulling back. I didn't know, and I didn't care. I felt empty, drained of everything except a low hum of anger that wouldn't go away. We went to bed in silence, each on our own side, a gulf between us. I could sense her tension, but she never spoke up. Neither did I. The next morning, I woke up knowing this was the day. The day I'd finally let the glass shatter. Because I had to. For my own sanity. She was in the kitchen when I came in. Early. Sunlight was streaming through the window, catching the dust motes in the air. She looked tired, eyes puffy. I walked up, stood by the counter, felt my heart pounding. My mouth was dry. But I found the words. We need to talk, I said. She froze, set down her mug of coffee. Didn't meet my eyes. Yeah, she said softly. We do. Silence stretched. I took a breath, tried to keep calm. My skin felt too tight for my body. I know, I said. 2 words that carried all the weight of our shattered life. She knew what I meant. Her eyes darted up, fear flashing across them. I'm sorry, she stammered. I just stood there. My mind was a blur of images, the kiss I saw, the messages, the secret dinners, the DNA test. I thought about the nights I spent in the spare room, the lonely dinners, the time she said she was working late. The words I wanted to say got stuck in my throat. How long? I managed. She swallowed, tears forming. Months, she said. Maybe a year. But it's... She didn't finish. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded. Inside, I could feel something tearing apart, but on the outside, I was calm. That's how I've always been. And the DNA test? I asked, voice shaking a little. She hesitated. It was. It's complicated. It's from a long time ago. Something I never told you. Her voice broke. She looked away, tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out this way. I almost laughed. This way, I repeated, my voice hollow. I guess you wanted me to never find out at all. She tried to say something, but I raised a hand. Don't. I couldn't bear her excuses. The anger I'd kept so controlled was boiling in my chest. I wanted to lash out, ask a million questions, but at the same time, I felt done. Like I'd seen enough. She reached for my arm, and I stepped back. The look on her face, it was like she finally realized what she'd done. Or maybe she just realized she was caught. Can we talk about this? Please, she asked, voice trembling. I stared at her for a long moment. This woman, who once was my whole world, now felt like a stranger. I don't think there's anything to talk about, I said quietly. Her shoulders sagged. She looked lost, like a child who got caught stealing. Let me explain, she pleaded. I thought of the trolls I'd unleashed on her, all the harassment. For a flash, I felt guilty. But then I remembered the kisses, the cooking sessions in my own kitchen. I already know enough, I said. More than I ever wanted to. She cried, quietly, tears dropping onto the counter. I waited for a wave of pity or remorse to wash over me. It didn't come. I just felt tired. So tired I could collapse. I'm sorry, she whispered again, voice cracking. I nodded, stepping away. Yeah, I muttered. Me too. Then I left the kitchen, went to the bedroom, pulled out a duffel bag. She followed, stood in the doorway, eyes wide. What are you doing? Her voice was shaky, scared. I shrugged. Leaving. That was it. No shouting, no threats, just a simple statement of fact. She broke down, sobbing, stumbling toward me, trying to grab my arm. I pushed her gently away. Don't, I said again, quietly. She sank to the floor, hands over her face. I zipped the bag, took my keys, walked out. She called after me, her voice muffled by tears, words jumbled. I didn't look back. I stepped outside, into the morning light. The air was cool. Birds were chirping. It felt surreal. My heart pounded like a drum. But my mind was oddly calm. I got in my truck, drove off, not sure where I was going. A motel, maybe. A buddy's couch. I didn't care. I just knew I couldn't be in that house anymore, not with all the lies echoing in every room. As I drove, my phone vibrated. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring. I had nothing left to say. Over the next few days, she kept calling, texting. Apologies, please, explanations. I read them once, maybe, then deleted them. I felt hollow. No sense of relief. No sense of victory. Just a dull ache. A couple weeks passed. I rented a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing special. Just a space with a bed, a table, a chair. I quit the online harassment. Didn't see the point anymore. I'd done what I did, and I wasn't proud of it. The satisfaction I felt then was gone now, replaced by a weird numbness. She kept trying to reach out. Asked me to meet so we could talk. Try counseling, something. I never answered. I knew I was done. Once that trust is gone, once you cross certain lines, there's no going back. And I was exhausted from years of distance, from the final punch of betrayal. I didn't have the energy to pretend we could fix it, so I moved on, sort of. Went back to work, tried to find a rhythm in my new life. I woke up alone, made my own coffee, left for the job site. Nobody to ask me how I slept. Nobody to come home to, but also nobody to lie to me. It was lonely, but it was real. My real. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the life I had, the man I was. I wonder if I could have done something different. If I'd asked her sooner, if I'd tried to salvage what we had, maybe it wouldn't have ended like this. But I guess it was already broken long before I caught her. I still see her name pop up on my phone now and then. I don't answer, don't even read her messages anymore. I guess part of me is curious what she wants to say, but the bigger part knows it doesn't matter. We're done. I'm not looking for closure or revenge. I've had enough of all that. In time, I'll sign the divorce papers. Maybe I'll talk to a lawyer, see what I need to do. But right now, I'm just drifting. And that's okay. I think. I'm not young. I'm not looking for a fresh start exactly. I'm just looking for some peace. The apartment's quiet. Some nights, I sit on the couch and stare at the wall, trying not to think about the years that slipped through my fingers. It hurts, but it's a clean hurt, not wrapped in lies. I prefer it this way. A few days ago, she sent me a long email. I saw the preview. The first line said, "I know I can't fix what I did, but..." I deleted it without reading the rest. Maybe I'll regret that one day, but right now, I can't handle more words. Words are what led us here, or the lack of them, maybe. Actions speak louder, and hers spoke volumes. I guess if there's a lesson in this, it's that once trust breaks, there's no going back. And no amount of pretty words can patch it up. I loved her once, but that was a long time ago. Now it's just a memory, buried under secrets and nights of garlic and butter in a kitchen that used to be mine. I'm going to keep living. Not better, not worse, just different. I'll get older, my back will keep hurting, my eyes will keep getting tired. But at least I won't be living a lie. That's something, I suppose. Maybe one day, I'll find it in me to forgive. But not today. For now, I'll let the phone ring if it wants. Let the messages pile up. I'm done talking. I'm done listening. I'm done pretending. I'll just breathe in and out, go to work, come home, and watch the sun set behind the trees. Life goes on, in its quiet, steady way, whether I'm ready for it or not. And that's all there is to say. I'm gone. She's on her own. Silence. That's what remains. And honestly, I'm okay with that.